Today I decided to give you guys a ranking of the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids films. This is a series of films that basically shows a scientist named Selinsky who builds a shrink slash expansion ray, but he accidentally ends up shrinking his kids, expanding his child, and even shrinking himself, all throughout the course of these three movies. This is a series of films that I grew up with, and while some are not the best and some are pretty dang good, I always had a soft spot for the series ever since I was a child. The main star of the series is Rick Moranis, who's known for films such as Spaceballs, Ghostbusters, and Little Shop of Horrors, just to name a few. So without further ado, I decided to give you guys my ranking from worst to best, starting with Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves. The third film in the franchise shows Selinsky and his brother, who have their own lab, working together, and one day when they're hanging out, they accidentally get shrunk. And then later on, his wife returns home and she gets shrunk as well as his brother's wife. While they're shrunken down inside their home, the kids have a party and all hell breaks loose as they try to get back to their normal size while also trying to protect their kids and avoiding household dangers such as giant cockroaches, spiders, and even a bubble machine. This one's okay, but the biggest problem with this one is just kind of a rehash of the original film, only with the parents getting shrunk down, which could have been a fun idea, but instead of being in a backyard or a similar dangerous scenario, they're just kind of going around inside of a house. That does present its own set of challenges and perils, much like the original film, but it just doesn't have that dangerous nature of the first film where you felt like the kids were going to die at any moment, possibly. And it doesn't have the spectacle or even look of those first two films. The film has a very low budget, and it being a TV movie, it kind of shows. It just doesn't have the feel of the first two. It very much feels like something you would watch on TV, and it feels kind of lazy overall. We also don't see the kids from the first two movies. The only kid we get is the baby from the second movie, who's now 10, and thus it does feel kind of detached from the rest of the series. I would have liked to have seen Nick and Wayne's daughter once again, but unfortunately we just don't get to see them as adults in this film, and it just focuses on Zelensky and his brother and, like I said, his brother's wife and his wife. Not a bad film overall. It's definitely watchable. Like, if you have kids, they'll probably enjoy it, but ultimately this one is just kind of a drag. It's not terrible, but the most lazy and most uninteresting of the series. Next we have Honey, I Blew Up the Kid. This one takes place a few years after the original film, and a lot of the cast returns this time around. Whereas in Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves, only Rick Moranis was returning, you did get most of the cast back from the original film. Unfortunately, we don't really see the neighbors from the first one this time around, which is a bit of a bummer, because I would have liked to see Max Headroom once again. But alas, the cast is still pretty good in this one. This one shows Selinsky turning his shrink ray into a potential expansion ray. But what happens is his baby, while he's not looking, gets hit with the expansion ray, and instead of immediately growing big, he slowly grows big over the course of the film. This was a really unique premise for a sequel, and I really like the effects in this one. It's really cool to see this kid in these undersized sets, making him look bigger as he grows more and more. As the film goes on, he eventually gets to the size of a giant, something along the size of like Godzilla or something like that. And we see him run around Vegas playing with a giant guitar from the Rock Cafe, and it's just really fun. I do like this one because it's just kind of a unique way to expand on the story. Instead of doing the same thing again like the third film, they went an original route and had an expansion ray instead of a shrink ray. It is a little bit silly at times, and it's very much as a kid's film, but it's just cool to see this infant go around causing all this havoc, and the military knowing they can't really hurt the kid because it's just a kid, so they have to like stay out of his way and try their best not to get killed by this rampaging toddler. Definitely a silly premise, but one that's really entertaining. I really do like the finale where he's going around Vegas. I do like how the effects of the movie are just so well done. There's even like stop motion and trick photography and several different ways that make this kid look huge. They even built like giant pairs of shoes when he's really huge that the actors walk around. Just a fun premise for a movie that you don't really see a lot of films like this anymore these days that just kind of go all out with a silly and dumb premise, but it still has fun with what it is. The filmmakers know they're not making a very serious film, but they lean into that one. This one is rather goofy, but it's also rather fun. A very enjoyable film and one that I definitely recommend. But you just can't beat the original, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Released in 1989, this film shows a scientist named Selinsky who builds a shrink ray. He thinks that it doesn't work, and he even gets frustrated with it and breaks it at one point. But what he doesn't realize is the ray does work. After it gets hit by a baseball from the neighbor's kid, the baseball absorbs heat from the ray, which is caused into malfunction, and it hits his kid as well as the neighbor's kid, and they shrink down. Later, when his sister and her friend are investigating, they also get shrunken down. They somehow get swept up into a trash bag by Selinsky, and he leaves them near the back fence. And the movie's about them basically having to escape the trash bag and travel the entire backyard. The backyard, which would just be a normal yard to anyone else, is now more or less a giant jungle of all sorts of terrors to someone who's only about a centimeter tall. The kids have to make their journey all the way back to the house while avoiding scorpions and running into giant ants and avoiding floods from water sprinklers and lawnmower blades as well as bees. There's just all so much peril and things that these kids go through in this movie, and it's so entertaining. The effects are pretty much all done practically. There's some stop motion effects here and there, but it's pretty much all done in camera, and it all looks great. Nowadays, this film would just be a giant CGI fest, but this is really a testament as to how great optical effects can be if implemented correctly. The overgrown grass that the kids slide down, the giant muddy textures, everything just looks so awesome. And even though it's mostly sets, it looks really natural. You think these kids really shrunk down to this size, at least I did when I was a kid. As an adult, you know it's just an effect, but it really does draw you in very well. It's a really fun premise. Rick Moranis is great in the movie. There's a lot of great visual gags, and the humor is just on point as well. It's well casted, well acted, and very enjoyable. There's nothing not to love about this movie, and if you've never seen it, I recommend watching it right now. It's available on Disney Plus, and it's one of my favorite live action Disney movies. Well, that's my list. I'm sorry that this video has been a bit delayed, but I've been working like crazy lately, even coming out on days I was supposed to be off. And recently, a pipe busted in my house, and that flooded a large portion of my carpet. It's just been hectic. I try not to get personal on this channel and tell you guys about my personal life, but I just want you to know that whenever a video is delayed, it's never intentional. It's always something else going on. I thank you for your patience, though, and I'll definitely have the next one out soon. I've already have it filmed, so I can have that edited pretty quickly. So expect the next video to come up much sooner. But again, I do thank y'all for watching. I appreciate all of you for subscribing, and I hope you enjoy the video. Leave your list down below on how you would rank the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids films, or just tell me your favorite of the franchise. I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I hope you have a wonderful Christmas and holiday season coming forward. And peace out.